There are around 4,200 hydropower plants in Bavaria. 200 of them produce almost 94% of all Bavarian hydropower electricity. The remaining 4,000 systems only supply 6%. The ecological damage caused by these small and micro power plants far exceeds their contribution to energy transition or climate protection. First of all, the fish suffer. Almost all river fish species in Bavaria are on the red list of endangered species, such as the Danube salmon, huchen, or grayling. If they are not killed by the turbines, they have to find their way in a completely changed habitat. The dammed up water in front of the weirs becomes warmer, which causes problems for cold-loving species such as trout or bullhead. The hydropower plants cut up the fish's migration path. Another problem, because fish need to get to different habitat types in the course of their life. The power plants also prevent the transport of solids such as gravel, the natural building material of rivers. The native fish species in Bavaria's rivers are gravel spawners. That means they lay their eggs in the gravel of the water bed. If the gravel is missing, they cannot reproduce. A mill canal is often created for hydropower plants. In these, the water is diverted from the riverbed and brought to the turbine. In the actual river remains only meager residual water, often not enough to sustain the life of fish, amphibians and insects. Until 2013, 3 such small power plants were located on the Mitternacher Ohe, a 17-kilometer-long river in eastern Bavaria. Canals had been built at all 3 locations, and the natural ecosystem of the original river was severely affected by the constant lack of water. But for the owners of the facilities, the operation was no longer worthwhile. On the one hand, the power plants were getting old. On the other hand, climate change caused fluctuating water levels and electricity production was hardly profitable anymore. The Bavarian Fisheries Association was able to acquire the water rights for these 3 facilities, together with the Fisheries Association for Lower Bavaria. After long planning, the Mitternacher Ohe's water slowly started to run freely again in 2001, with the demolition of the Mühle and the Mühle in 2007. In 2013, the time had come, and with the Mitternach-Mühle, the last facility could be demolished. The excavators moved in, with the media running up, and piece by piece, the old obstacles in the river disappeared. The remaining mill canal was filled in so that all of the river's water finally poured into the natural course of the Mitternacher Ohe again. Eight years ago, the last obstacle in the Mitternacher Ohe was torn down. On the entire length of the river, more than 17 kilometers, fish can now migrate freely again, and the habitat can develop naturally. The water ecologist Clemens Ratschan knows the situation on the water very well from studies for the Bavarian Fisheries Association. He takes us to an on-site visit and shows how the Mitternacher Ohe has gradually developed positively after its revival. So, where are we now? What are we seeing, and what is so special about this project?
We are standing in the former impoundment of the Mitternach-Mühle, which was removed a few years ago. What is very special about the Mitternacher Ohe now is that the whole river system is without any small hydropower plants after the dam removal. And so a long river network is available for fish. For example, we have here the Danube salmon, called huchen in German. And here is one of the very few populations in Germany and Austria which still reproduces naturally. And we can meet fish up to 20 kilograms, 1.30 meters length, which live in this tiny river and use it on a very long stretch.
Why is it better to completely remove a dam instead of just building a bypass?
In comparison with a conventional fishway, this removal has a lot of advantages. For example, there's no more impoundment, the water can flow freely, there's no more water abstraction, the gravel is transported just like in the natural situation, and this has also a series of consequences for the organisms like fish. Of course, regarding upstream migrations, because fishways are just a helping method, but it cannot be compared to a freely flowing river system. For example, some organisms like lampreys, we have here the Danubian brook lamprey. This is a species that is very poor in swimming, or it cannot jump at all. So if the dam is removed, it can disperse without any hindering. And also a very important aspect is downstream migrations and fish protection, because the problem of fish being entrained into turbines and killed in the turbine, this problem doesn't exist anymore, and fish can migrate upstream and downstream just like in the natural situation.
How is the fish population looking today?
In the Mitternacher Ohe we have a very nature-like fish composition of the grayling region. It consists of grayling, of course, of Danube salmon, there's also brown trout, bullhead, and also already cyprinid species like nace and barbel occur, which is due to the fact that the river here is not very steep and it makes meanders. So also those fish that live in regions further downstream can exist up here in the Bavarian foothill mountains.
What's the additional ecological advantage of removing a dam?
Well, if we think in the long term, we are facing scenarios of climate change, and this will bring heating up of the water temperatures in summer. It will bring long periods of low water and extreme floods, and all this can be a problem for fish populations. If you have a system that is completely connected in a long course, fish can choose, for example, cooler regions in upstream areas, regions where tributaries bring cool waters, and migrate downstream in winter, for example, or after a flood they can migrate upstream to find their spawning habitats up there, and this is not hindered by hydropower plants anymore.
What are you hoping for? How do you see the river developing?
I think we have perfect local conditions now to conserve the fish in the long term. Still, it would be great and very desirable to continue with such measures further downstream in the Ilz River that follows down to Passau on a stretch of about 45 kilometers. We have still a handful of further hydropower plants without fishways, and of course it would be great if we don't just build fishways, but if some of these plants can also be removed in the next years.
We are seeing a great success at the Mitternacher Ohe. Thank you for watching, and now please feel free to ask Johannes Schnell, who ran the project from the beginning, all your questions on how to achieve it.